I remember. A journey through the Cepher Zakaryahu. Another video produced by Cepher Publishing Group, courtesy of Cepher Academy. I'm Stephen Pigeon, broadcasting today from an undisclosed location deep in the deep woods of Alaska. I want to thank you for joining me here today for a presentation as we discuss the first 6 books of Zakaryahu. Now, as I mentioned in our opening dialogue, Genesis 1:27 tells us that and Elohiym created man, male and female, he created them. And in the Ivriyt, or in the Hebrew, this term for male is zakar, meaning to mark or to remember, even to publish, to write. And so zakar, and to be male, right? To mark is to be male, right? And so Zakaryahu is Yah's marker, Yah's man, Yah's publisher, and the one who remembers what Yah has spoken to him. So we're going to take a look tonight at the first 6 chapters of Zakaryahu, and we're going to be reading them and then doing a little bit of commentary from there. I hope you will enjoy this. I want to thank you, subscribers, for being present with me tonight and for making your comments during the course of the presentation. All right, let's begin. Zakaryahu, chapter 1. In the 8th month, in the 2nd year of Daryavesh, came the word of Yahuah unto Zakaryahu, the son of Yahu, the son of Iddo, the prophet, saying, Yahuah has been sore displeased with your fathers. Therefore say ye unto them, thus says Yahuah Tsebaot. Turn ye unto me, says Yahuah Tsebaot, and I will turn unto you, says Yahuah Tsebaot. Be ye not as your fathers, unto whom the former prophets have cried, saying, thus says Yahuah Tsebaot, turn ye now from your evil ways and from your evil doings. But they did not hear nor hearken unto me, says Yahuah. Your fathers, where are they? And the prophets, do they live forever? But my words and my statutes, which I commanded my servants the prophets, did they not take hold of your fathers? And they returned and said, like as Yahuah Tsebaot thought to do unto us, according to our ways and according to our doings, so has he dealt with us. A very strong admonition from Zakaryahu, saying, even though the prophets do not live any longer, nor do your fathers live any longer, and as the prophets had proclaimed to them what Yah would do unto them, should they not hearken to him, so they did. So he had dealt with them. Upon the 24th day of the 11th month, which is in the month of Shabbat, in the 2nd year of Daryavesh. Now, bear in mind that this is going to be after the captivity of 586. In the 2nd year of Daryavesh, and you might recall that Daryavesh is another name for Darius. Darius is the named successor to Cyrus or Koresh in the book of Daniel. And you might recall that Koresh or Cyrus is the one who came and destroyed the kingdom of Nebuchadnezzar in the hands of his grandson, Belteshazzar, who was drinking from the cups of the temple and having a party, essentially engaged in heretical use of the temple implements when the writing appeared on the wall, many, tekelu farsin. And he called Daniel to read it, and Daniel said, your kingdom has been measured and has fallen short. Therefore it shall be taken from you, for your days are numbered. And that night he fell dead, and Koresh captured the great Babylon, bringing the Babylonian Empire under the tutelage of the Medo-Persian Empire. But Cyrus or Koresh would not live long, and he would be replaced by his successor, Darius, and Darius would move the capital from Babylon to Shushan, or Susan, Shushan, which is a current city in Iran, by the way, Shushan. And this is in the second year of this Darius. In the second year of Darius came the word of Yahuah unto Zakaryahu, the son of Berakyahu, the son of Iddo the prophet, saying, I saw by night, and behold, a man riding upon a red horse. And he stood among the myrtle trees that were in the bottom, and behind him there were red horses, speckled and white. Then said I, O Adonai, what are these? And the angel that talked with me said, I will show you what these be. And the man that stood among the myrtle trees answered and said, these are they whom Yahuah has sent to walk to and fro through the earth. And they answered the angel of Yahuah that stood among the myrtle trees and said, we have walked to and fro through the earth, and behold, all the earth sits still and is at rest. This is a very interesting connotation that these red horses, and keep in mind, we will see that these horses, with the exception of the white horse, the speckled horse is actually more of a scarlet horse. They call it a bay horse, but it's kind of a scarlet horse. We'll see. And so you had red horses and then these scarlet horses, and then, of course, white horses. This is a very interesting combination because we're going to see 4 horses appear in the book Chazon, but here we see 3 groups of horses. Let's see how this goes. Then the angel of Yahuah answered and said, O Yahuah Tsebaot, how long will you not have mercy on Jerusalem and on the cities of Yehudah, against which you have had indignation these 70 years? So we see here now another timing given to us in the book of Zechariah, indicating that this second year of Darius would be 70 years from the taking of the captivity in Jerusalem, which, by the way, did not happen in 586 BC, but had happened earlier under Nebuzaradan, who had taken the elite, the nobility, captive in 593 BC. And so here we're talking about this dedication here is very clear that Zakaryahu is telling us when this book was written, which would be exactly in 523 BC, the second year of the reign of Darius. And Yahuah answered the angel that talked with me with good words and comfortable words. So the angel that communed with me said unto me, cry you, saying, thus says Yahuah Tsebaot, I am jealous for Jerusalem and for Zion with a great jealousy. And I am very sorely displeased with the heathen that are at ease. For I was but a little displeased, and they helped forward the affliction. Therefore, thus says Yahuah, I am returned to Jerusalem with mercies, and my house shall be built in it, says Yahuah Tsebaot, and the line shall be stretched forth upon Jerusalem. Cry yet, saying, thus says Yahuah Tsebaot, my cities through prosperity shall yet be spread abroad, and Yahuah shall yet comfort Zion, and shall yet choose Jerusalem. Fantastic prophecy about the rebuilding, of course, of Jerusalem. And of course, these red horses that have gone forth, there were, signifying war. There were wars that had taken place. And it's interesting that there would be 3 red horses because we had 3 basically competing empires coming into this. We had the Assyrian Empire to the north, the Babylonian Empire to the south, and the Egyptian Empire to the west. And all 3 of these horses are at rest, and they're at rest. And this is discomforting to Zakaryahu, who is saying, why are all these warring armies at rest, and yet Jerusalem is lying there vacant? This is the question. And Yahuah says, I am more zealous for Jerusalem than you are, and more zealous for Zion than you are. And my cities through prosperity shall yet be spread abroad, and I'm going to return to Jerusalem with mercy, and my house shall be built in it, and a line shall be stretched forth upon Jerusalem. It shall be measured again. Then lifted up my eyes and saw, and behold, 4 horns. And I said unto the angel that talked with me, what be these? And he answered, these are the horns which have scattered Yehudah, Yasharel, and Jerusalem. And Yahuah showed me 4 carpenters. Then said I, what come these to do? And he spoke, saying, these are the horns which have scattered Yehudah, so that no man did lift up his head. But these are come to fray them, to cast out the horns of the other nations, which lifted up their horn over the land of Yehudah, to scatter it. Okay, so you can see that these horns that we're talking about are horns of other nations. These are nations who are built by carpenters, right? I lifted up my eyes and saw 4 horns. He says, what are these? These are the horns which have scattered Yehudah and Yasharel, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, and the city of Jerusalem. And Yahuah showed me 4 carpenters. These are the 4 horns which have scattered Yehudah, these 4 carpenters, so that no man did lift up his head, but these have come to fray them, to cast out the horns of the other nations, which lifted up their horn over the land of Yehudah, to scatter it. Very interesting prophecy. All right, now here is a picture of what they call a bay horse, And it's actually, some people call it a scarlet horse, but it's much more of a red horse than the other red horses. So we see here, red horse in the Hebrew there, and I've put the Hebrew phrase in, al-sus adom, the horse that is red. Right? Now, where you see the passage, horses red, speckled, and white, the passage reads in the Hebrew, susim adomim, serukim ba-labayim. Saruk means bright red, as in piercing to the sight, i.e. a bay horse. So this is an example of a bay horse, okay? A bay horse. And labayim comes from Laban, which means white, a white horse, right? And the whites and the reds and the reds. So here you have the susim adumim, the horses that were reds. Then you have the bright reds. Then you have the whites, okay? All right, so let's continue. If anybody has any questions on it, they're welcome to put it up in the chat. I'll see if I can catch it. Not that anybody's listening, but anyway, if you do have any questions, you go and put it up. I've lifted up my eyes again and looked. Now, this is from chapter 2 of Zakaryahu. I've lifted up my eyes again and looked, and behold, a man with a measuring line in his hand. Now, remember, he said he was going to bring a measuring line in chapter 1. And here you go. Then said I, whither do you go? And he said unto me, to measure Jerusalem, to see what the breadth there is, and what is the length thereof. And behold, the angel that talked with me went forth, and another angel went out to meet him and said unto him, run and speak to this young man, saying, Jerusalem shall be inhabited as towns without walls, for the multitude of men and cattle therein. Towns without walls, right? For I, says Yahuah, will be unto her a wall of fire round about, and will be the glory in the midst of her. Okay, now this, I think, is a very important aspect of this future prophecy, okay? Jerusalem shall be inhabited as towns without walls. Now, we see that when you go to modern-day Jerusalem, the modern-day Jerusalem is, in fact, a town with walls. Okay, so we can see that this may be depicting a different Jerusalem. than the one that we currently believe that we are seeing, okay? Because Yahuah will be unto her a wall of fire around about, and will be the glory in the midst of her. Very significant. And this could be a discussion about the Jerusalem to come. Okay. All right. Let's see. Let's see if we can continue here now. Alas, alas, come forth and free from the land of the north, says Yahuah. For I have spread you abroad as the four winds of heaven, says Yahuah. Okay, all right, guys. Let's just take a look at that real quick, and see what we're talking about. Flee from the land of the north, says Yahuah. I have spread you abroad. Deliver yourself, O Zion, that dwell with the daughter of Babel. See, not Babylon, but with the daughter of Babylon. For thus says Yahuah Tsebaot, after the glory he has sent me unto the nations which spoiled you. For he that touches you touches the apple of his eye. Now, I want to ask you something. Is he talking about Jerusalem here? He says, deliver yourself, O Zion, that dwell with the daughter of Babel. What is this? Yeah. In the earth's apple, Terrebonne, Oregon. Yeah, interesting. I mean, here we see something very interesting. If Zion is in Israel, what's it doing dwelling with the daughters of Babylon? Deliver yourself, O Zion. You are spread abroad. You are in the lands of the north. You see, Zion does not mean a geographic location about a particular mountain. And after the glory he has sent me unto the nations which spoiled you, for he that touches you, that is you people who have been scattered, not Jerusalem. You people that have been scattered are the apple of his eye. For behold, I will shake my hand upon them, and they shall be a spoil unto their servants, and ye shall know that Yahuah Tsebaot has sent me. Okay. All right. Sing and rejoice, O daughter of Zion. For lo, I come, and I will dwell in the midst of you, says Yahuah. And many nations shall be joined to Yahuah in that day. Wait a minute. I thought we determined that Mount Zion was just a geographic location. No, it's not. It's not. And we're going to see that it is something else entirely. I will dwell in the midst of you, and many nations shall be joined to Yahuah on that day and shall be my people. Many nations shall be my people, and I will dwell in the midst of you, and you shall know that Yahuah Tsebaot has sent me unto you. And Yahuah shall inherit Yehudah, his portion, in the Holy Land, and shall choose Jerusalem again. Be silent, O all flesh, before Yahuah, for he is raised up out of his holy habitation. Okay. Now, again, when we talk about the Holy Land here, we're not talking about, Eretz Kodesh, but rather the Holy Land is rather Adamah Kodesh. Adamah Kodesh is the Holy Land, you see, not Eretz Kodesh, but Adamah Kodesh. And the Holy Land, and he shall choose Jerusalem again. And this particular prophecy in Zakaryahu is talking about the rebuilding of Jerusalem. Yeah, now Chris asks, is Zion where Mashiach will reign? No, actually, Zion, as we're going to see here, when we get up to that interpretation, Zion is actually the guiding light. You might recall that the house of Israel was led by a pillar of fire at night. And this pillar of fire, you might understand as the Zion. The Zion. It's a guiding light. Zion is a guiding light. And so what we see, O daughter of the guiding light, for come, I will dwell in the midst of you, and many nations shall be joined in Eliyahu, and that they shall be my people, and I will dwell in the midst of you, and you will know that Yahuah Tzevot has sent me unto you. Right? All right, and we're also going to see that choosing Jerusalem is another place too that may or may not be this city that we're talking about in Israel. All right. So we see here, and I can show you here what we're talking about. Now, here's Jerusalem. Three sisters. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Sean is talking about Oregon potentially being the seat of 7 mountains. Yeah, the truth. But in that case, Sean, there is specifically 7 volcanoes, right? Okay. So, and I have to tell you, I mean, the geography of Oregon is really spectacular. But when you're talking about the geography of Oregon, it's volcanoes for days. All 3 sisters of volcanoes. What do they call it? The Black Root or something. That's a volcano. And if you drive up 97, you see nothing but cinder cones of old volcanoes, including Crater Lake, which is an old volcano, and Mount Hood. Okay, so Jerusalem, a dual allusion to 2 main hills. Okay, so Jerusalem has the idea of having 2 meanings. Okay, or it's referring to 2 things. Yerushalayim. Now, I want to take just 1 second here to indicate that this may be, again, some kind of a Masoretic construct. Because if you recall, the scripture tells us that this city was built and held by the Jebusites. The Jebusites. Now, of course, we know there was no J in the Hebrew. So because there was no J in the Hebrew, we have to go back and correct this and lay it up for what it was, what it truly was, which was, of course, Jebusites. Okay, so the Yebusim were the people that built the fortress that, of course, David was jealous of, because David's fortress at Hebron was not defensible against long arrows. So as a question, and so the question becomes this Yebu, and so they built a castle that was impregnable, or a fortress that was impregnable. So this fortress was a place of peace because it was impregnable. They didn't even worry about putting up a defensive army because nobody could get into the castle. And then, of course, David's commander, Yoav, found out, well, if we can go up through the Gishon Spring and come up through the water that feeds the castle, then we can defeat the castle, which is what they did. And that's how they took the castle. And then David moved his capital city, not at the direction of Yahuah, but in his own direction, moved the capital city to Jerusalem. Okay, now, a couple of questions here. Has the millennial kingdom occurred already? No, that is what's called a preterist view. A preterist view that everything that was predicted in Kizion has happened already. And I could show you many examples of that it hasn't. So we can see here that that the potential original name of Jerusalem was not Yerushalem, but rather Yebus Shalom. Yebus Shalom. Now, if this is the case, then we can see, if we take a look at that in the Hebrew, we see a very similar disposition here. Now, I'll show you what I'm talking about. When you see Jerusalem here, Yerushalayim, you can see, look, so here it is. Yeru, Shalom, or Shalayim. But if it were Shalom, it would be spelled exactly the same way. The only difference would be in terms of how the vowel markings would come out. So we would see Yerushalom, Yerushalayim, depending on how the vowel markings are come out. But now look at this. I want to show you the difference. Watch. If this was, as I am asserting, the real name Yebu Shalom, as compared to Yerushalom, then what will we see in the difference? What would be the sole difference in terms of the Aramaic block script? It would be this. Boom. That's it. That is the total difference between Yebu Shalom and Yerushalom. One line. Okay, one line. Okay, but we're going to take Strong's opinion here, and we're going to say, okay, Yerushalayim, which means what? Well, it's a good teaching, actually, what comes in from Yerushalayim, because we can see a couple of things. Instead of us talking about the Yebusites, we're going to talk about Yara, the primitive root meaning to flow as water, or to teach. And shalom, of course, is to be safe. So when you're talking about Yerushalayim, are we talking about a physical place? No, we're talking about a safe teaching place. Now, you see, so we can begin to see that, again, when we hover around the idea of capital letters, which don't exist in the Hebrew, we tend to get a distortion because we're thinking in terms of a proper noun. Okay, so that's Yara Shalom. Yara Shalom. Yara Shalom. Now, what about Zion? Well, here's Zion here, but it tells us what? Zion, it's the same as this word, 6725, which is Ziyun, which means what? A guiding pillar. A guiding pillar. Do you see it? So this wasn't my idea. This is what is actually stated in the Strong's Concordance about what Zion is, right? Yerushalom, Zion, a guiding pillar. So when we talk about Zion and Yerushalayim, we're talking about a guiding pillar and a safe teaching place, the city of peace. Yeah. Lance says the city of peace. Well, that's possible too, right? Okay. So here we go. So this is what I think is being discussed here. And I think it's important for us to see that when we talk about these prophecies saying the word shall come out of Zion and the Torah out of Yerushalayim, well, what are we talking about? Okay, so Yahuah's child said, weren't the vowels added later? If so, how much did it change the original text? Okay, now here's the thing that we have to remember. The Masoretes teach that there are no vowels in Hebrew, and that the only vowels can be vowel signs called the nikudot. And the nikudot are the Masoretic choice of vowels that can be used. And in order to do this, they tell you that the vowel sounds themselves have no sound until we plug a sound into them. And then when we plug a sound into them, then it's what we said with the little cookie crumbs or the marks that go beneath the letters. And so we see this here. We're going to see this with chametz and patak and the shurig and the hirik yod and so on and so forth. All of these things are vowel sounds. However, in Hebrew, there are original vowels that exist. Now, let's go through those for just a second. And let me just stop this presentation here for a second to deal with that, because I want to go into and talk about the intrinsic vowel sounds in Hebrew. Okay, so here's what you have. You have people teaching that, okay, there's no vowel sounds in Hebrew, but I think there are vowel sounds. Now, let's take a look at one of the first vowel sounds we can readily ascertain, which is he. This, of course, is mispronounced because this vowel sound is actually ah. So to give you an example, we're talking about the land of Yahudah. And so when we see Yahudah, when you see that spelled, you see this idea of Yod, He, Vav, Dalet, He. So why isn't this Yahud-Ha? Yahud-Ha, if that's a He. Well, because it's not, because this is pronounced Ah, just as it is in the word Torah, as it is in Shalomah, as it is in Sarah, as it is in all the other words that end with the Ah. It isn't pronounced Ha, it's pronounced Ah. Okay, so in the initial mindset, we can see that, in fact, He is Ah. Okay, now we have an idea. So now the question is, what is Aleph? Is Aleph also Ah? No, Aleph is not also Ah. How do we know? Because the Greeks who inherited the Paleo-Ivriyt Aleph was like this, and the Greeks just turned it upright, and they call it A. So the truth is that this vowel sound is A. All right, what about Yod? Well, Yod has the vowel sound E. And in its possessive, it becomes E, O, Ya. In its possessive. Sometimes Ya, E, And you have to remember that the sound is a vowel sound. It's called the schwa, Ia, right? Okay, and then we have, of course, the Ein, which is pronounced the schwa sound. All right, that leaves us with the question, where's O? And that would be here in the Vav. So in the Vav, this is usually going to be pronounced U. Ia, U, A, U. But it can also be pronounced O. Okay? So these are the intrinsic vowels in the Hebrew, and these are their vowel sounds. So when somebody comes along and says, oh no, the vowel sounds are actually and or O, well, that is a guess that's been constructed out of whole cloth in modernity. We see examples of all of this. For instance, you will see quite often in the Masoretic text, this Vav will begin a piece, and the Masoretes will designate this Vav. For instance, you might say Va Amer. Well, I don't have enough space here to put it, but this wouldn't be that. They would say, oh, look, put a shurig there. This is pronounced U. And there are rules for pronouncing the Vav as U instead of Va, using it as the prefix and. And we see that, in fact, the lion's share of the pronunciation of the Vav is U. We see it in many, many places, in many, many words in the Ivriyt, where you see it as U, and sometimes you see it as O. Like, let me give you an example, and we'll just talk about this, and we'll see if we can get a word here, a word in edgewise. Okay, so let me clear a little bit of this out of here, just 1 second. So if we come in and we say, well, let's take the word Tav, Vav, Resh, He. Now, if you believe that this is He, then this has to be Ha, and then this has to be Ra, Raha, and then this has to be Va. So this becomes Tavaraha. Tavaraha. Now, this is the word Torah. Okay? So with this word, we can see that this Vav here is going to be pronounced as an O. This is a T. This is an R. And this is pronounced ah. Torah. Torah. Not tevara or tavaraha. It's ridiculous. Nobody has ever said Torah is pronounced tavaraha. Okay, and how about, let's take a look at another one. Let's look at the word. Sorry about that. Let's look at this word here. For you Hebrew scholars out there, easy one. This is what? This is shalavama. Shalavama. Is it shalavama? No, it's not shalavama. Of course not. This is shalom. Shalom. So this is pronounced O. Now, some people say, oh, it's pronounced oo. Well, okay. You might have your preferences for saying that. And I can tell you that when you talk about the Yod He Vav He, and let's go to that for just a minute. If we talk about the Yod He Vav He, there is reason to believe that some people did in fact pronounce the Vav as an O and not an U. All right. So we say Yod He Vav He. Now, some people say, well, that's Yahweh. Well, how does this, which is pronounced Ah, is the same letter as this? How does this one get to be pronounced A? I don't know of any of these kinds of exceptions that exist anywhere else where the he here is ah and the he at the end is suddenly pronounced A. That would be like saying Torah or Sereh or Shalomeh. You know, it's unusual. Okay. So with that being said, we're just going to kind of take that A out and say, no, that's not there. This is also ah. Well, now the question is it E, which we have the vowel sound right here, E? Is it E, ah, U, ah, Yahuah? Or is it E, ah, O, ah, Yahuah, Yahuah, Yahuah? Instead of Yahuah, Yahuah, Yahuah. Now you can see that in the Hopi language, we have this word here, which we pronounce in the English Iowa, but was pronounced Yahuah, Yahuah. You see how it was a pronunciation of Yahuah, 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 Yahuah. You see? And so there's other delineation in ancient modernity that also looks to Yahoh as compared to Yahu, Yahoh as compared to Yahu. Okay, so there were vowel signs. There were vowels in the Hebrew before the Masoretes determined that there weren't any vowels in the Hebrew. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. All right. So let's continue. All right. All right. And so I think we've got the other screen share up. All right. So we can see that these things then are kind of, they tell us a lot of things that, you know, one of the things, so the point I want to make here when we're talking about this Hebrew is that we want to be able to look at the Hebrew and recognize that when we start talking about what we see in English, we've got all kinds of capitalized words. And these capitalized words we take to mean proper nouns, meaning a specific person, place, or thing. They may not be. They may not be. You may find something entirely different. Okay. All right. Yeah. Sorry about that, Yahuah's child. I guess we got back in school. Okay. Here we go. Let's keep going. Okay. So Zechariah 3. Now we're going to get into a verse here that is never taught in the Christian church, and I can't imagine why not. It's one of the most significant Old Testament or Tanakh prophecies there is. And here it is. And the reason they never teach it is because they don't want to admit that his name is Yahuah. So here we go, Zechariah 3:1-5. And he showed me Yahuah, the high priest. Now, was Joshua, the son of Nun, a high priest? No, he was never a high priest. He was a commander, but he was never a priest. But here we see Yahuah, the high priest, standing before the angel of Yahuah, and Hasatan standing at his right hand to accuse him. And Yahuah said unto Hasatan, Yahuah rebukes you, O Satan. Even Yahuah that has chosen Jerusalem rebukes you. Is not this a brand plucked out of the fire? Is this not a hot coal? That in the burning of Jerusalem, I picked out this hot coal. Now, Yahuah was clothed with filthy garments and stood before the angel. The filthy garments, what? What are these filthy garments? These are the filthy garments of sin, of the sins of the world. And he stood before the angel. And he answered and spoke unto those who stood before him, saying, Take away the filthy garments from him. And unto him he said, Behold, I have caused your iniquity to pass from you, which is the iniquity of the earth, the sins of the earth. And I will clothe you with a change of raiment. And I said, Let them set a fair turban upon his head. And so they set a fair turban upon his head and clothed him with garments. And the angel of Yahuah stood by. Okay, incredible prophecy, because we're talking about this brand plucked out of the fire. Now remember, the prophecy we saw before in Zechariah 2 was looking to the rebuilding of the temple. Now, out of the fire that was the burning of the first temple, there's a brand plucked. There's a hot coal plucked, right? And the angel of Yahuah protested unto Yahuah, saying, Thus says Yahuah Tsebaot, if you will walk in my ways and if you will guard my watch, then you shall also judge my house and shall also guard my courts, and I will give you places to walk among these that stand by. Okay, now, a lot of this assumes that the language here in the English is successfully putting forth if, okay? Now, let's take out the if for just a minute, and let's read it again. And the angel of Yahuah protested unto Yahuah, saying, Thus says Yahuah, you will walk in my ways, and you will guard my watch, and you shall also judge my house, and shall also guard my courts, and I will give you places to walk among these who stand by. You see, the if is a couching that appears in the text, but if it's not there, we see an absolute perfect prophetic message. Hear now, O Yahuah, the high priest, you and your fellows that sit before you. And who are these fellows that sit before Yahuah, this high priest? For they are men wondered at. They are men wondered at. For behold, I will bring forth my servant, the branch. All right. Now, in this case, we're talking about Semeach, or Semeach, that's not the word. But the word that we often use for branch is what? We use this word, netzer. Netzer. Even though Mashiach at one point says, I am the vine, you are the branches, which is what? Ani hagefen ata ha-netzerim. So here he is, the branch. When we talk about the netzer, so the town in which he was born was called Nazareth. Now, when you read this in the English, okay, Nazareth, great. But when you read it in the Hebrew, it's Netzerot. That is to say, branches. The town was called branches, the town of branches, Netzerot. And the people from Netzerot were called Netzeri, or of the branch. They were called of the branch. What was on the cross in Hebrew? Yahuah ha-Netzeri, which means Yahuah from Nazareth, the Nazarene, but it also means Yahuah, the branch. Yahuah, the branch. For behold, the stone that I have laid before Yahuah, upon one stone shall be 7 eyes, and behold, I will engrave the graving thereof. Oh, wait a minute. We got a problem. Houston, we have a problem. Upon one stone shall there be 7 eyes, and I will engrave the graving thereof, says Yahuah. All right, now if Yah engraved 7 eyes on a stone, is that an engraved idol? If Yah engraved 7 eyes on a stone, is that an engraved idol? No, it's not. It's his engraving. It's his etching. It's not an idol. And I will remove the iniquity of that land in 1 day. In that day, says Yahuah Sebaot, shall every man call his neighbor under the vine and under the fig tree. You recall that when Mashiach called Nathanael, he called him from under the fig tree, right? He called him from under the fig tree. Well, what is this all about? What is this all about? Well, we can see a couple of things. These things have particular meaning. Under the vine and under the fig tree, okay? This is symbolic for secular government. And this is symbolic for religion. Every man is under his own religion and his own government. Ye shall call every man his neighbor under their religion and under their government. Okay, you're going to see this reference quite a bit in scripture, talking about the vine and the fig tree. Every man under his own vine, every man under his own fig tree. They're metaphorical languages, metaphorical terms, for your theology and your politics. It's another way to understand it, your theology and your politics. Okay, so the name given here in this passage is Yahushua. Now, this is the plain spelling, no Masoretic vowel sounds, no Yiddish construct whatsoever. And so because we're talking about no Yiddish construct and no Masoretic vowel signs, because this is plain Aramaic block script, which is, by the way all scripture appeared before the 8th century AD, that the scripture was either written, and in fact, there's very few, almost no extant texts of scripture in Paleo-Hebrew. There are some examples of the Yod-He Vav-He being given in Paleo script in the Dead Sea Scrolls, but the vast majority of the Dead Sea Scrolls are written in this, which is called Aramaic block script, with no Masoretic vowel points, no nikudot. Okay, but I mentioned to you before that these vowels had inherent sounds to them. And you might recall that I said that this yod was an E, and that this he was an A, and that this vav was an U, and that this ayin was the schwa or an A. So as a consequence, we end up with the pronunciation that is like this: E, A, U, Sheen, which is Sha, and then the A or schwa sound. Yahushua, Yahushua. Yahushua. Now, when you check out your Strong's Concordance, well, they're going to tell you, oh, no, look, there's a shurig right here. We put a vowel point right there. Just as they put a shurig or a vowel point, a holum, in the word Elohiym, they put a holum there, which the Paleo people say is pronounced Al-Uhim, But there's no oo or o in the word at all if you eliminate the Masoretic vowel points. And so they try to tell you that, oh yeah, so this is, this is the who here, and then this is now pronounced Yah, who, Shua. Well, where did we get the Shua? Where did we get this? Here, question mark. Where did we get this oo? Where did we get that? Oh, we got it from one place and one place only. The Masoretic placement, Masoretic Shurig. Okay? So if you want to criticize my pronunciation of Yahusha because you like Yahushua, then make sure you know you're using a Masoretic pronunciation of Yahusha. You're using the Masoretic pronunciation. You're not using the Aramaic block script pre-Masoretic discussion. Okay? All right. So I just wanted to make that point crystal clear. All right. Let's continue. Chapter 4. And the angel that talked with me came again and wakened me as a man that is wakened out of his sleep. And he said unto me, what do you see? Now here you can see, he says, he waked me as a man, like the way a man would be wakened out of his sleep, which means what? This is a vision. This is not being completely wakened. And he said to me, what do you see? And I said, I have looked, and behold, a menorah, all of gold, with a bowl upon the top of it, and his 7 lamps thereon, and 7 pipes to the 7 lamps which are upon the top thereof, and 2 olive trees standing by it, one upon the right side of the bowl, and one upon the left side thereof. So I answered and spoke to the angel and talked with me, saying, what are these, my Adonai? And the angel that talked with me answered and said unto me, know you not what these be? And I said, nope, no idea. Then he answered and said unto me, this is the word of Yahuah unto Zerubbabel, saying, not by might, not by power, but by my Ruach, says Yahuah Sebaot. Now, I want to take just 1 second on that passage and talk about this. Okay, because this is an incredibly important passage. Not by might, not by power, but by my Ruach. Now, this is a message for life, okay? This is a message for life, because you're not going to succeed in your pursuing righteousness by your might or by your power. Well, if I changed my behavior to do this, your behavior is not going to be changed by your might or your power. It's going to be done by the Ruach Yahuah. And this is the case for all of us. And in fact, your accomplishments in this life are not going to be attained by you doing it your way. I did it my way, which is why I'm now dead. That's the end of the discussion, right? The fact is that you can do it your way all you want, but your way is going to lead to nothing except the collection of a bunch of junk. When you talk about doing something Yah's way, then you don't do it by your might nor by your power, but by his leading, by his Ruach. It's a very important aspect of seeking righteousness. Okay. Who are you, O great mountain? Before Zerubbabel you shall become a plain, and he shall bring forth the headstone thereof with shoutings, crying, grace, grace unto it. Okay, he shall bring the headstone. This is the Ibn Rosh Pina, is the way they say it in Hebrew. The Ibn Rosh Pina, the chief cornerstone. You shall bring the headstone, the chief cornerstone of the new temple, Zerubbabel shall bring to bear in Yerushalayim. Okay. Moreover, the word of Yahuah came unto me, saying, the hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundation of this house. His hands shall also finish it, and you shall know that Yahuah Tsebaot has sent me unto it. His hands. Now, when we talk about his hands here, are we talking about Zerubbabel's hands? These are Zerubbabel's hands, therefore he's living? No. His handiwork is going to continue until the temple is finished, right? It's not necessarily Zerubbabel, but his hands, who are, like, for instance, if you had 6 guys working for you, you might say, these are my hands that are helping me build the temple. His hands, the hands of Zerubbabel, are going to continue to build because the temple was actually completed in 417 BC. And this is given to us in 3 Ezra, chapter 8, tells us when this happened. Okay? All right. For who has despised the day of small things? For they shall rejoice and shall see the plummet in the hand of Zerubbabel. In other words, he's going to say, here's the square. This is where it goes. This is the foundation. This is what it looks like. With those 7, they are the eyes of Yahuah, which run to and fro throughout the whole earth. Okay, so remember that the engraved stone that Yah himself engraved had 7 eyes on it. He engraved 7 eyes on a stone. And those 7 are the eyes of Yahuah, which run to and fro throughout the whole earth. All right, something to think about, especially when you consider that this was an engraving that Yah himself made. All right. Then answered I and said unto him, what are these 2 olive trees that are on the right side of the menorah and upon the left side? And I answered again and said unto him, what are these 2 olive branches, which through the 2 golden pipes empty the golden oil out of themselves? And he answered me and said, know ye not what these are? And I said, nope, I don't. Then he said, these are the 2 anointed ones that stand by the Adonai of the whole earth. Okay, all right. Boom. We have something here that is very, very critical. Okay, and what is critical about it? Well, it's kind of trying to tell you here something. These are the 2 anointed ones that stand by the Adonai of the whole earth. These are 2 olive trees. 2 olive trees. Now, the olive trees are doing what? They're providing oil. They're providing oil to the lampstand. Right? They through the 2 golden pipes, empty the golden oil out of themselves. They are pouring oil from themselves, the golden oil, which is the stuff that fire can be lit with. And these 2 are the 2 anointed ones feeding the light of the world. They stand by the Adonai of the whole earth. They are feeding the light of the world by pouring out their oil of themselves into this menorah. Okay, it's an extremely important prophecy. All right. And because here is Revelation, okay? Hazon, verse 11, 3 and 4. And I will give power unto my 2 witnesses. Right? And they shall prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. These are the 2 olive trees and the 2 menorahs standing before the Adonai of the whole earth. Okay. You see this right here? The 2 olive trees and the 2 menorahs standing before the Elohiym of the whole earth. Well, we just saw there that there was a single menorah and 2 olive trees pouring oil into it, and they were the 2 anointed ones standing before the Elohiym of the whole earth. Now, Mashiach tells us that the menorahs, these, in chapter 1 of the book of Hazon, the menorahs are what? Menorahs equal called out assemblies. I'm not going to do it that way. That's just too hard. Let's do it this way. This way we can see it a little bit better. Menorah in Chazon chapter 1 tells us this is a called out assembly. And an olive tree, the two olive trees, are the two anointed ones standing with Adonai. Okay. So this gives us an idea as to who these witnesses are. Okay, because the two menorahs mean they're two assemblies, and the two olive trees are who? Who are the two olive trees? Well, Paul is going to give us a delineation, as is Jeremiah and Jeremiah 11. Jeremiah says, you were called a green olive tree. But Paul says that there is a wild olive tree, and that's one. And there is a domestic olive tree. That's two. Both of whose branches were stripped off of the tree. Both of whose branches were stripped off the tree. Okay? And they were the domestic olive tree and they were the wild olive tree. And both of these are testifying as assemblies. Now, they're going to testify for 1,260 days. What are they going to testify to? They shall prophesy. They shall prophesy. Okay. Now, some people say, well, these are the two assemblies from the northern and the southern kingdom. Very possible. Very possible. Okay. Now, Pat asked, do the two witnesses have to die? Well, it depends on how you're describing death, right? It depends on how you're describing death. For instance, suppose that these two assemblies are just banished from the face of the earth, that they can no longer speak. They can no longer talk. They're banished. They can't speak. Does that equal a spiritual death? Could. It could. Or maybe that they die. And maybe that they're actually two people too, two physical people. One from the northern kingdom, one from the southern kingdom. And some people say, well, it's Elijah and it's Moses, or it's Elijah and it's Enoch, because they were, of course, translated. Well, maybe, right? Okay, so watch two olive trees. Okay, all right, so let's see. Okay, Pat, I'm not quite sure that's a question. Okay, all right, let's see. Now let's keep going. We're going to break into Zechariah chapter 5. Okay, here we go. This one is like on point. And you're only going to read it this way in the Cepher. You're not going to read it this way in any other text. Then I turned and lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, a flying roll. Now, this is important that we understand that the phrase here is roll. Okay? A flying roll. Now, in the Hebrew, you have two things. You have a scroll, okay? A scroll. I'm not going to do it this way. I'm going to do it the other way. Let's do it this way. So you have a scroll that's got two handles, right? Two handles. And in the Hebrew, that's called a Cepher. And then you have a roll. And a roll has one handle. And it's called a Megillah. And so the word used here in Zakaryahu is Megillah. Megillah. Okay? So it's not a flying scroll, it's a flying roll. And he said unto me, what do you see? And I answered, I see a flying roll. The length of it is 20 cubits. Now, 20 cubits, depending on if you're talking about Isaac Newton's measurement, which is 27.3 inches. If we're talking about that measurement, which is probably consistent with Noah's measurement, then that cubit, 23.7 inches, is going to be 10. It's going to be 10 times that, which would be 273 inches. Except it's going to be twice that. It's going to be 546 inches. And so 546 inches, well, we're going to have to break that down by 12. And that's going to give us, let's see, 546 inches is going to give us how much? I don't know how much it's going to give us. It's going to give us roughly 40 something feet. Let's call it 44 feet. 44 feet. And the breadth thereof is 10 cubits. Now the breadth is this. Now look, if we're talking about the breadth of it, suppose this thing is a circle. So we're talking about from here to here? No, we're talking about the circumference of it is 10 cubits, which is 274 inches, which is going to be 20 feet around, 21 feet roughly. So 44 feet tall, 21 feet around, all right? Then said unto me, this is the curse that goes forth over the face of the whole earth. The curse that goes forth over the face of the whole earth. For everyone that steals is innocent according to her, and everyone that swears 7 oaths is innocent according to her. And I will bring her forth, says Yahuah Tsevaot, and she shall enter into the house of the thief, and into the house of the him that swears 7 oaths falsely by my name. And she shall remain in the midst of this house, and she shall finish it, its timber and its stones. Now, we've been watching a series on Chernobyl lately, and, when you talk about a nuclear weapon, you're talking about it depending on what you're dealing with. If you're dealing with cesium, okay, so cesium has a particular half-life. I think the half-life of cesium is 160 years. But when you talk about strontium-90, which is another byproduct of a nuclear weapon, strontium-90, this has a half-life of 2,600 years. So you can see that it's going to remain in the midst of the house until everything is finished. Timber and stones. Okay? Yeah, there you go. So Sean used to sleep between the Trident missiles, yeah. Well, keep in mind that the Trident missiles, before you get into a fission event, that those are pretty much, dormant amounts of uranium. They're not highly radioactive. Once they get into a fission environment, they are. Okay, and that requires a certain mass they have to reach to do that. Critical mass, it's called. Okay, Zakaryahu, chapter 5, verse 5. Then the angel that talked with me went forth and said unto me, lift up now your eyes and see what this is that goes forth. And I said, what is it? And he said, this is the measure that goes forth. And he said, moreover, this is how they appear through all the earth. In other words, every place that this is seen, they appear like this. They look like this. And behold, there was lifted up a disk of lead, and there a fire sits in the midst of the measure. Now, in a lot of text, you see a woman sitting here in a basket, but it's not a woman in a basket, because remember that the word Isha means both woman and fire. It's a fire sitting in the midst of the measure. And he said, this is wickedness. You bet it's wickedness. And he cast it into the midst of the measure, and he cast the weight of lead upon the mouth thereof, retaining it. Then lifted up my eyes, and look, and behold, there came out 2 of them, the wind in their wings, for they had wings like the wings of a stork. And they lifted up their measure between the earth and the heavens. Then said I to the angel that talked with me, where are they causing the measure to go? And he said unto me, to build it a house in the land of Shinar, and it shall be established and set there upon her own base. Okay. So here we begin to see, Yahuah's child. Let me clarify that. 9-stick menorah is not orthodox. The 9-stick menorah is actually called the Hanukkah, and the Hanukkah is the candelabra that represents Hanukkah. That's why it's called a Hanukkah. And they can light the Hanukkah, but they are instructed to not light the 7-candle menorah. The 7-candle menorah is described with particularity in the Torah portion and is given expressly to Moshe as to how to build it. At the same time, he's told as to how to build the Ark of the Covenant and the tent of meeting. Okay, and now Sherry asked you, I think the 2-stick prophecy is connected to the 2 witnesses. I do, Sherry. I do think that is very much the same group they're talking about. And so when we talk about the 2 witnesses in Revelation 11, that they comport to the 2-stick prophecy, I believe that's Ezekiel 36, that when you follow the dry bones prophecy before you get into the discussion of the upcoming war of Gog Magog, that you see that there are 2 sticks that come together. One is the stick of Joseph in the hand of Ephraim, and the other is the stick of Yehudah. Well, that gives you an indication. We're talking about Northern Kingdom and Southern Kingdom that are at odds with one another, coming together to form a single stick. But it also appears to be the 2 assemblies, the Northern Assembly and the Southern Assembly, all prophesying for 1,260 days, okay? And Bird Malwa says, wings like the stork could be a symbol. Yes, it could be the symbol of wings like a stork. That is to say, the stork puts out its wings and does not flap. They're just floating. So the wings like a stork is fixed wings, if you will, okay? Yeah, and so it keeps thinking, it says one for Hanukkah and one for the Maccabees. Now, the Maccabees and Hanukkah are the same thing. The Maccabees are the ones that set forth the teaching on Hanukkah. And because of that, the 9-candle menorah, 8 days, and the 9th candle is for lighting the other 8 days of Hanukkah. That's why it's called a Hanukkah. Okay, so let's see. Let's keep going. All right. Now, you can see that this is going to be established on her own base in the land of Shinar. Okay, well, let's take a look here. Look at this, okay? And I turned and I lifted up, let's see, wait a minute. My visuals didn't come up. Okay, I was going to show you the land of Shinar. And recently, Iran has announced that they have developed a hypersonic missile. Now, the hypersonic missile that they have developed is very close in size to a single roll that is 44 feet tall and 20 feet around. And this would come out of a measure like a silo that would have lead over the top of it to retain its radioactivity, a lead lid, and that this would come out and soar up into heaven. And so, because remember, it's a roll that we're talking about. It's a roll, not a scroll. So it looks like a roll. It looks like looks like a missile, quite frankly. And it's going to be landing it's going to be setting up its base in the land of Shinar, i.e. in far western Iran. So not only is it telling you that there's going to be a missile, a roll, and then when they are fired, there will be 2 of them that are fired that will come out of there, and that they're going to be coming out of a silo, which is what we're talking about. And we get the exact size of these missiles, and we're also told where they're going to be located in Iran. They're going to be located in the far western section of Iran, in the land of Shinar. And this is a prophecy that is very powerful in Zakaryahu, okay? All right. Now, in Zechariah 6, 1 through 5, let's begin in chapter 6 and see what we have. Okay, now, Yahuah's child, are you getting bad audio? That's possible you're getting bad. We'll try a different microphone here and see if I can get a little better sound. Sometimes I get problems with that. Okay. As I turned, I lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, there came 4 chariots out from behind 2 mountains, and the mountains were mountains of brass. In the first chariot were red horses. In the second chariot, black horses. In the third chariot, white horses. And in the fourth chariot, spotted and bay horses. Then I answered and said unto the angel that talked with me, what are these, my Adonai? And the angel answered and said unto me, these are the four ruachot of the heavens, which go forth from standing before the Adonai of the whole earth. Now, you might recall that when we talk about the four horsemen of Revelation, that we see four horses. The very first horse we see is going to be a white horse. This is Revelation 6:1, right? The white horse, Revelation 6:1. Then that is followed by a red horse, which is the horse of war. And that is followed by a black horse, the horse of famine. And of course, what appears in the Greek text concerning the fourth horse here, in the Greek, it is a pale green horse, the pale green horse of death. Okay, chloros is the word that's used. Now, really, if you wanted to really get an idea what that color is talking about, you're talking about kind of puke green, really. It's an ugly green. It's not, green like forest green or hunter green. It's more like a pukey green, if you will. Mucus green, maybe. You might think of it in that color. But this pale green horse, here we see this foreshadowed here, and we see Zechariah telling us, look, these four ruachot, these four spirits, are before the Adonai of all the earth, and they're coming forth from him. Okay, so these are symbologies that are going to be laid out in. This is going to be laid out in a Revelation, in Chazon. It's going to be telling us about what's happening. Okay, I looked, and behold, there came four chariots from out between two mountains, and the mountains were of brass. That's, in other words, hard set. This is a hard set situation, and they're coming in. Okay, now let's see what happens in this prophecy and see if we can get any indication as to where we're going on this. The black horses which are therein go forth into the north country. Where's the famine going to be? It's telling us famine is going to go into the north country. And the white go forth after them. The white horse is this misleading that takes place with the rider having a bow and a wreath going out to conquer and to conquer. So the white horse is going to conquer this area, and then famine is going to follow. And the spotted go forth towards the south country. This is where death comes in. Excuse me. The spotted, that's not the case. We're talking about the red going forth into the south country, the war. And the bay went forth and sought to go that they might walk to and fro throughout the whole earth. And he said, get hence and walk to and fro throughout the whole earth. So what we're talking about here is that this is telling us here, I think it's telling us, remember that a bay horse, the bay, this is a scarlet horse. Scarlet. Now, if this is the case, then this tells you that the spotted going forth towards the south means that this is going to bring, the pale horse, death. The bay horse is going to be red, and it's what? It's walking to and fro throughout the whole earth. In other words, this is predicting worldwide war. However, behold, these to go toward the north country have quieted my ruach in the north country. And so what is the ruach that's in the north country? The famine. Okay. All right. Interesting stuff. So maybe the famine doesn't hit as hard as everybody thinks it's going to hit. All right. And the word of Yahuah came unto me, saying, take of them of the captivity, even of Cheldai, of Tobiyahu, and of Yedaiah, which are come from Babel, and come you the same day, and go into the house of Yoshayahu, the son of Zephaniah. Then take silver and gold, and make crowns, and set them upon the head of Yahusha, the son of Yahutzadak, the high priest, and speak unto him, and saying, thus says Yahuah Tsebaoth, saying, behold, the man whose name is the branch, and he shall grow up out of his place, and he shall build the temple of Yahuah. Wow. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I hear you, Sean. Yeah, about me playing the guitar. I don't know if I'm going to play the guitar tonight, though. I haven't tuned it, though. And besides that, my mic isn't working that well either. But I appreciate that, Sean. Thank you. But here we see what? Thus says Yahuah, saying, behold, Yahusha, the man whose name is the branch, Hanetzari, he shall grow up out of his place, and he shall build the temple of Yahuah. It's very clear here, couldn't be more obvious, that Zechariah is saying that Yahusha is called the branch, and he shall build the temple of Yahuah. Okay, all right. Now I think that may be the end of our presentation. Let's find out. Oh no, here we go. A few more verses. And even he shall build the temple of Yahuah, and he shall bear the glory, and shall sit and rule upon his throne, and he shall be a priest upon his throne, and the council of peace shall be between them both. And the crown shall be to Helem, and to Tobiyahu, and Yediahu, and Chen, and the son of Zephaniah, for a memorial in the temple of Yahuah. And they that are far off shall come and build in the temple of Yahuah, and ye shall know that Yahuah Tsebaoth has sent me unto you, and this shall come to pass if ye diligently obey the voice of Yahuah Elohiym. Okay, so here's the graphic, and I'm sorry my graphic was in the wrong place, but here's the graphic I was going to show you. This is the picture of one of the missiles that Iran is showing off. May or may not be, it's hypersonic. I don't think that is the hypersonic. That's just one of their other missiles that they've used, a solid-bodied missile. And here is a graphic map of the land of Shinar, which you can see. Now, if you look closely, you'll see. I'll show it to you here. Hard to tell because the graphic is so fuzzy. But here is the town of Susa, or Susan, or Shushan. This is where Darius moved his capital, and this is in Iran. This area here is Iran, okay? And so this is Shushan, this is where Darius built his capital, and so you can see that Shinar resides all the way into Iran. Okay. And that, my friends, concludes our presentation. So with that, if there are other questions, now is a good time to ask. Okay, there will be monsters in the last time when Yahusha opens the scrolls. Yeah, the monsters coming in the last times, I mean, that has its own take on it, doesn't it? That has its own impetus. And, we'll have to see what that looks like. Okay, but let's go ahead and let's see if we can get some questions. Let's see. You might just sound good to me. I cannot play the guitar. I might just buy a bass, something to play with. Okay, yeah. Listen, anybody can play the bass initially. It's that second year bass playing that becomes really difficult. All right. Debbie says this could be him building the great white throne of judgment. Yeah, it's true, but it's also the throne of the kingdom. Debbie, it's the throne of the kingdom upon which Yahusha shall sit. He shall sit. And this is what the whole thing is about this, about these prophecies in Zakaryahu. They're extreme messianic prophecy. So Caden says, why does it say Yahusha, the son of Yahutzadak? Well, now remember, there's a couple of things here. When you see the name Yahutzadak, right, we've got an interesting two combination of word there. And in fact, since you're asking that, Caden, let me just go to the whiteboard and let's look at this. Because when we talk about Yahuah, we're talking about, we have to talk about, let me clear this. So we have this name Yahuah, and so you have this idea of Yod, Hey, Vav, Yahu. And then we have what? We have Sadiq. Sadiq. Okay, let's see, this is going to be final cough. Sadiq. Okay, so this is the Hebrew spelling, Yahu Sadiq. Now, you might look at this and say, well, gee, we need to put that into English, which means we begin with the capital Y, and then we, merge the two words together to come up with Yahu Sadiq, right? So now this tells us who we're dealing with. Well, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And here's the reason why. Because first of all, this word here, Sadiq, this word means what? Righteousness. This means righteousness. Sadiq, righteous. Sedekah. And of course, what's Yahu? Right? The son of, so what does this mean? You could say Yahuah, or you could say the son, you could put it this way if you wanted. Instead of saying Yahuah, which we think is a proper name, we could simply say son of the righteous Yahuah. You see? Yahuah. It could say the very same thing because remember, there's no capital letters in Hebrew. Okay? The son of the righteous Yahuah. That's why it says Yahuah. Okay. This could be him building the great white throne of judgment. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, geography is getting flipped on its head. Well, I'll tell you, the geography is very interesting. Let's see. Hey, thank you, Joy. Thank you for that comment. I'm glad you enjoyed the presentation. He's building the temple of Yahuah, and we are the stones. That's exactly right, Jerry. We are stones built without hands. That's exactly right. Oh, okay. And Jake Grant's question. I'm not sure if let's see. Jake's Grant question about Jessica, not in caps. Let me see if I can find it. If I can go back here and find Jake's question, just a minute. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Could the bow in the hand of the white horse rider be a rainbow and the agenda of deception be the rainbow people? That's exactly right, Jake. That is exactly right. Because when you look at the term bow in Hebrew, we had the same problem when we were dealing with bow in Spanish because we were using the word arco. And the word arco is the same thing. You have the same problem in Hebrew, which is that the word for rainbow is the same word that's used for bow that an archer takes. It's exactly the same word. And so we have the same issue in the Greek talking about that passage, that the bow in the hands of the white rider is very much a rainbow. And when you go back and you look, you see that the rainbow is used to go forth and conquer, right? And he was given a rainbow and went conquering and to conquer. And look what has happened with that rainbow. They've conquered to the point that the White House put the rainbow flag over the United States flag, that the UN took down every flag of every country on earth and put up the rainbow flag, that the rainbow flag was flown, the Union Jack was dropped on the streets of London so that they can parade the rainbow flag over the top of it. This rainbow flag was used as a bow to go out conquering and to conquer. So that's a very good question, Jake. Thank you for asking that question. And there's more to Revelation 6:1-2 as well. I mean, when you start looking at the Greek, you'll see that there's discussion about the mask, that they used a cloth like a diaper to conquer, and that they were using a crown, a corona in Latin. They were using a crown, a corona, to also conquer, right? He was given the corona to conquer, right? Yeah, so all that stuff is, when you get into it, man, you get into Revelation 6, and man, it just keeps revealing and keeps revealing. Okay, let's see what else. Okay, let me see what else we have here. He is building a temple without hands. Okay, so I got Jake's question. Thanks. Keep digging, 7. I appreciate that. All right, let's see here. Okay, living in this time. Okay, yeah. So, so I think I just want to say this as we kind of close out. The hook is the restrainer in the bow is and a snare in the tension. Yeah, another good point there too. I want to thank you guys for being such faithful people. Like it's up to me, right? It's not. It's up to Yah entirely. And we do have much coming ahead of us, and it's coming very quickly. You know, we're in the valley of decision today, tomorrow, the next day. We're in the valley of decision, and it appears that the decision has already been made to go into World War III. And so that we're on the precipice of that now. I mean, as in this operation that's going on in Europe with 225 fighter aircraft and troops stationed in Poland and Romania with lots of tanks and other equipment, that it appears that the decision that's been made by the US Congress is to go to war with Russia. So that appears like it's on the table now. And so we're in the valley of decision. And because we're in the valley of decision, you guys are going to have to start taking a look at some of these prophecies that are talking about what Yah is doing. Like, for instance, that prophecy in Zechariah 2. Okay. Prophecy in Zechariah 2. The prophecy in Zechariah 2 is very, very important, talking about what Yah is going to do with his people. And that he is going to, and I want you to keep this in mind when we close this out tonight. You have to keep in mind that Zion is the guiding light, right? The guiding pillar. And that Jerusalem is the peaceful teaching place, peaceful teaching place, okay? All right. Okay, so with that, guys, so I want to remind you, don't forget to recommend the Cepher to your friends, because we are struggling to do the best we can to keep the scripture coming. And hopefully we're going to be able to maintain our price point well into next year, which is going to be a good sign given the fact that we've got all of this inflation coming at us. And we also want to be able to, and don't forget, if you're interested in more teaching that's more direct about specific things, you can come to Cepher Academy. We have the World Assembly of Yahuah on Telegram. You can also come to me on Telegram, Stephen Pigeon, and we chat, and we can give it to you. And there are many other Cepher sites on Telegram that you have to be invited to join. And don't forget, I do a show Monday through Friday at 2:00 Alaska time, 3:00 Pacific, on the Telegram channel called Radio Free Alaska. And that's an open channel. You can just join it, and then you can catch up with where we are. Okay. Radio Free Alaska. All right. So Sean says that there are tanks in California, Florida, and Iowa. And plus there's been, open artillery that's been deployed in Idaho and other places. In fact, 27 states have reported massive troop movements openly. And in the addition to air defense mechanisms being deployed in California, primarily in the San Francisco area. And so we've got these going on now. Todd says, in Gematria, the date of World War I, World War II, and the invasion of Ukraine all equals 68. And so we're in World War III already. Yeah, I agree with that analysis, Todd. We just haven't reached, the kind of total conflict that we saw in World War II. But we're now about to reach it, because we're going to be seeing the United States directly pitted against Russia on the ground in Ukraine. Okay. And so Sinister RP writes, no question but a prayer for you. Well, thank you. Mighty merciful Yahuah, we humbly thank the divine majesty for guiding Stephen Vision to help further guide us that light and truth. Thank you, Sinister RP. I really appreciate your prayer. I really do. Thank you. All these prayers greatly bless me. Okay, let's see. Do I have a veterans discount, Dr. P? I never get the veterans discount. And, actually, we don't have a veterans discount, and I should have, shouldn't I? I should have a veterans discount. But I'll tell you what, if you order more than $200 worth of books from Cepher, like if you order the library and a book, or if you and a friend get together to buy a couple of books together, you can use the discount code fellowship and you get a 20% discount. So if you join with a couple other people and buy a couple of books, and then you get a really healthy discount. Okay. All right. All right, let's see. There we go. Okay, shalom, everyone. All right, American military equipment in Alberta, Canada. Yeah, now, how's that for something, right? Yeah, well, I'll tell you, blessings to Alberta. May you guys come into independence and come into independence soon. Okay. All right. Let's see. Your ruach is on fire, and what it feels like that. Yeah, I don't know what it means when your ruach is on fire. I got to tell you, Brad Malware. I got to tell you, we used to use that phrase all the time when we were in the missionary work, and our translators kept saying, "What are you guys talking about? Your heart's on fire." You need to settle down, right? Okay, but I do know what that is. Yeah. Okay, let's see. All right, thoughts on such extreme weather events right now, like the heat in Texas. Okay, Debbie, I'll speak a little bit about the weather. There is something really inordinate happening on the weather right now. Really inordinate. There is a heat buildup in the northern Atlantic that's extreme. In fact, the northern Atlantic is 11 degrees Fahrenheit hotter than normal, which for water is really quite unusual. And so we're seeing some very interesting anomalies. Now, some people say it's potential for it's a potential for a pole shift. Other people are saying we've got Planet X approaching. Well, there could be a lot of things. It could be that we're suffering a whole bunch of inordinate UV radiation because of the supernova of Betelgeuse, which we're now seeing. And if we're seeing it, then that means the radiation has arrived. Okay. All right. Well, Kathy, thank you for that. I'm going to leave it here. I want to thank you guys. Blessings to you all. I hope to catch you next Thursday. Or if not, I'll see you at the Cepher Shabbat meeting on Saturday morning. Or if you join me in class, or you can catch me on Radio Free Alaska, or catch me at the World Assembly of Yahuah. Blessings to you in the name of Yah. May you be blessed and carried through in all these things. Okay. Thank you. Bye.